Welcome, new and old friends. I just have a couple things to say, and then the stories will begin. Before you drift off into the dream realm, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. If you'd like to find out about my social links, my website, how to help the channel, check the description box. Now turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. It's time to dream. Lost in Walmart by Anonymoose. Got another one you might enjoy. So back during COVID, maybe 2022, I was with my family on our bi-weekly grocery trip. We live a half an hour from our town, so we make a night of shopping, out for dinner, and all that. Anyways, we were at our last stop of the night, Walmart. My mom always takes her time in the produce section, so my younger than me, 6-year-old sister and I decided to look at the clothing while we wait. We're still there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and realized we still hadn't seen our parents come around to go to cash. We'd be able to see this being that the clothing section is right in front of the cash in this location. We decide to find them and see how much longer they'll be, as we're both getting tired of shopping since around 10 p.m. So we go to the produce section where they should be. We don't find them, so we backtrack through the aisles thinking they forgot something and head back to get it. This normally works. It's a big store, but we've been coming to this location since I was a baby, so we know it by heart. We do a full lap around the store and turn up without them. There aren't that many people in the store because of how late it is, so we should have no problem picking them out. We start our second lap. Maybe they were in between aisles and we missed them the first time, right? Well, then we started to notice foreign language. People around us are speaking something other than English. This is super uncommon for the area. It's a small town, and though it's close to Ottawa, not many tourists stop there because there isn't anything for them. We started to notice that not a single person was speaking English. Every person, every family we passed was speaking something we didn't understand. So as we walked, my sister and I are nervously joking about the fact that we can't understand a single person we passed in the last 10 minutes. We complete a second lap, and by this point we're getting worried they've already left the store. But as we near the produce section for the third time, we finally find them. They're basically where we left them originally. We ran up to them happy to finally see some familiar faces, saying how we couldn't find them. Well, my mom says they've been in the produce section the entire time. I swear we checked the damn produce section twice and they were not there before. Even weirder, once we finally found them, it seemed like everyone started speaking English again. I didn't hear another foreign language that night. So either my parents and youngest sister are really good at hiding in plain sight, and there was some sort of foreign tour bus that happened to pull into this small town Walmart at 10 p.m. Or something weird happened. Edit. To be clear, it was not French. We live close to the Quebec border and are exposed to French often. I also dabble in language learning, so it was not German, Russian, Spanish, or Italian either. It literally sounded like English, garblish, close enough to sound familiar, but no word was distinguishable. I'd say I was having a stroke if my sister wasn't experiencing the same thing with me. And as quickly as it was there, it was gone, like the flip of a switch. Hey, this is just a quick little side note from 242. As a fellow Canadian who's never been anywhere near Quebec, I can completely tell you I would know what French sounds like. To my knowledge, everyone in Canada has to learn French as a second language, and I believe spec might have to have English as a second language, but don't hold me to that. But you would know what French, Italian, and Spanish would sound like pretty easily once you know what the flow sounds like. They all sound very different, so I completely get where OP is coming from. So just wanted to put my little 2 cents in there. A tear streaked down the face of a trembling woman as she pleaded with her husband to forgive her for breaking his favorite mug, terrified of his reaction and praying that he would concede that it was not her fault. Mercifully, the puppet master agreed with his wife this time, considering that the accident was not caused by her wanton clumsiness, but rather that the string sewed in her wrist had snapped. Missing Remote by Tavasha1811. Okay, so I was watching a YouTube video on my bed. I paused the video using the remote, left the room to get myself a glass of water, and when I came back, the remote was nowhere to be found. I have turned my room upside down, looked in every crevice. The remote is actually nowhere. I'm certain I haven't taken the remote out of the room because I do remember I put it on the bed, right beside my phone after I paused it. I've checked behind my blankets. It's nowhere. I'm not even sad that I lost the remote because I can control the TV from my iPhone. But the point is, I'm just so spooked that it got lost because no one else has been here since I got myself some water, and now it's not here, and it's just so strange. People may argue that it's a human mistake, but when I walked back in the room, I felt the energy change. It was like a wave washed over my brain, my eyes started watering, and there was a significant drop in temperature. No windows were open, and the thermostat was set to 25 degrees Celsius, which is not very cold. It's almost as if it grew legs and walked away. P.S. Okay, I lied. I do care. I want my remote back. P.P.S. I just left the room again, walked in the door, my gaze turned to the place where I last saw my remote, and lo and behold, the remote is just sitting there. This was clearly not there before. I googled it and they said that there was a shift in its dimension, so I did what they advised. I clapped my hands multiple times and even opened the window, then, like I said, I walked out the door with the briefest while. It was barely a minute, and when I walked in, there it was. The remote was not there before. I know for a fact. So spooky. Does anyone really know what could have happened? I checked the highest possible shelf and under my bed. It was surely not in the room or anywhere for that matter. Then it just, showed up? There are just so many strange events that have happened in the past 10 hours that I just cannot comprehend that all of this is a coincidence. I just don't know why, but everything just feels really, really different today. All of this could just be synchronicity. My husband has been hesitant to try for another baby, saying that 6 kids we currently have is enough. But after I showed him the metrics from our channel indicating that new babies got the most engagement, he had to agree to try for another. Glitch in the Matrix at SeaWorld Orlando by leahisom. My husband and I experienced what we think could only be explained by a glitch in the Matrix at SeaWorld Orlando on Saturday night, November the 30th, 2024, around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that had both of us questioning our reality.
For context, in case you're unfamiliar with the locker system at SeaWorld, the park has lockers you can rent to store your belongings while on various rides, and you create a 4-digit code to open your assigned locker number that is printed on your receipt, so only you should be able to reopen the locker assigned to you once you're done riding. It's worth noting these lockers are not otherwise accessible by park guests or employees, since they're made locked even when unassigned and can only be opened from the front using your code until the rental expires. Also, if you rent a transferable locker pass for the entire day like we did, you can press a button and end the rental on the locker you just finished using, so you can transfer your rental to another locker for the next ride. After riding many rides throughout the day using different lockers and ending the night with one of our favorite rides called Pipeline, we gathered all of our belongings from the locker, at least we thought, before exiting the park and walking halfway through the parking lot, when my husband suddenly realized he didn't have his phone with him. Even though we had been diligent about not leaving anything behind in the lockers all day, we thought since it was dark and we were tired, it must have accidentally been left in the locker we last used. So I ran back to the park entrance and returned to the pipeline as fast as we could. Here's where reality seemed to glitch. We opened the locker, but to our dismay and slight panic, it was empty. We both swiped our hands all around the inside of the locker and didn't feel anything, so I turned my phone's flashlight on, illuminating the inside of the black metal locker entirely. But we could see nothing except for the small white sticker that each of the lockers had, which was fully visible. We shut the locker door and I immediately called his phone, although it was on vibrate, in case it was in his backpack or pocket without us realizing. But he felt nothing, and we could hear nothing vibrating from inside the locker, even though it seemed clear after our first check that it was inside. We opened the locker a second time and did the same check as before, swiping our hands, shining my flashlight, calling his phone, just to make sure we weren't somehow mistaking it for the first time, but it was still empty. We briefly discussed going to look for his phone in the locker for the ride we did before Pipeline, which was a ride called Kraken, that was practically on the other side of the park. When it occurred to my husband, he had already ended the locker rental at Kraken, and the only way we could reopen it without help from the park security would be randomly be reassigned the same locker number as before. We were still standing in front of our locker at Pipeline when my increasingly panicked husband decided to open it for a third time, despite us logically knowing there was no way his phone could be inside. But to both of our disbelief, it was. His phone was laying face down and sideways at the front of the locker, almost directly on top of the white sticker that was now mostly covered by his phone. Yet the sticker had been fully visible before both times that we had checked with my flashlight, and we both had physically felt and seen every square inch of the locker the first 2 times we checked. We left the park feeling perplexed, and I would really love to know what others think. Lovely whispering, Jessica, I called to my sister as we explored the pitch-black cave, each one of us roaming a different passage. Stephen, my sister's trembling voice echoed through the cave. I don't know how to whistle. New Door on Old House by HalflingTiefling. I live in an area where most of the homes are 100+ years old, back when buildings had huge windows to let in natural light to supplement gas lighting, kerosene lamps, candles, etc. They open wide in the summer to let in a breeze, and, originally at least, they had super hot radiators in front of them so you can keep them open for fresh air during flu season. Huge windows, a lot of them, are such a common thing. We pass a house regular on my way to work that's a lovely pale blue. It's on an alley/across from a parking lot, and the doorway is on the side, between it and the house next to it. The side of the house facing the street that has 2 very skinny windows on the first floor and 1 small window on the second floor. It looks like the kind of window you get in the back of a cheap house in the suburbs built in the 1980s. The main entrance is set back pretty far, and again, it's on the side of the house facing another house, and has a few windows. The side facing the alley/parking lot also has a few small windows. It's pretty weird. It looks like an old building, but with miniature windows. Possibly original windows were slided over or something. We lived in a shitty apartment once, where the windows in the pantry and the 1 bedroom were nailed shut on the inside and sided over on the outside. We drove past it today, and the side of the house facing the street now has a big picture window, door, and wooden porch. There's 3 large windows on the second floor. It looks very welcoming, very inviting, and like the other houses on the street. The larger window, front door, and porch were not there yesterday. The porch doesn't look new. It doesn't look old, but it looks like it's been there for at least a few months. It's wet and muddy, and the front yard isn't churned out from people walking around doing work. The house just suddenly has big windows, a new door, and a big wooden front porch, like over the course of a day. My husband was driving. I pointed it out to him, but we passed it by the time he was able to look. We regularly comment on how dark and unfamiliar the house looks. It really doesn't fit the character of the other houses on the street, and the windows are tiny. Or, they were at least. He doesn't remember the windows being as small as I described them, and said they probably just fixed up the porch. But there never was a porch. There wasn't a door. But now there is. It's unnerving.
Next are the infamous Silent Sisters who never speak, not even at their trial, the doctor said, adding with a chuckle. To the point, some staff believe they communicate without words, but only with each other. Not only with each other, the visitor replied, her voice suddenly distant, her eyes hollow and cold. Here we go again. This time a McDonald's disappeared and then came back. By Almost-Jaded. It's been nice not to post here for a while. No significant glitches for almost a year now? As usual, look at my profile if you don't know all my crazy previous posts. A quick side note from 242, I'm planning to narrate all their crazy glitch stories for you. The Harmon Road interconnect is all finished now, so even though I'm still in the place where it disappeared, at least I got built again, almost exactly the way I remember it, and the new Azure Road is great. Development around it's coming along nicely, if it still feels weird every time I drive on it. The girlfriend and I have moved in together in a house off of Azure, so it's part of my routine now. Anyway, moving right along. 4 days ago, as of this post, on the way home from errands, girlfriend wants McDonald's. No problem. There's one a few blocks from our house. Standalone location right next to a KFC. I've lived in this neighborhood off and on for over 11 years. I know this McDonald's. We pull into the shopping center. The sign on the street is there, no McDonald's. We drive around the parking lot. It isn't there. The KFC is there, no McDonald's. We laugh about it and decide maybe it's closed, but like, the whole building is gone. You can't see the KFC from the Walmart because the McDonald's is in the way. And now you can see the KFC. That seems weird. We both commented on it. The sign is still up. Must have been recent. Then we see a McDonald's sign on the Walmart. There wasn't one in this Walmart before. That explains it. They opened one in the Walmart and closed the standalone store. No idea why the whole building had to come down, but whatever. We don't want to go into Walmart, so we leave. 2 days later, now 2 days ago, girlfriend asked if I could stop at McDonald's on the way home from work. She has this thing for their fries dipped in chocolate shake. I know there's more of you out there. I decided to brave going into Walmart so she could have her hot fries and a non-melted shake rather than stopping somewhere further away and going through the drive-thru. I take the Craig exit and head up Lucy to the same shopping center we had been 2 days before. And there is the standalone McDonald's, 2-lane drive-thru right next to KFC, where it's been for about a decade. And there's no McDonald's sign on Walmart. Been there 2 days in a row now, so I guess that's cool. Hey Glitch, how you been? Sorry I disappear between stories, but here we are again.
Scientists have finally found a way to translate the sound of absolute nothingness into words, which they call the language of God. The first time they tested it, the only thing they could hear was the blood-curdling scream. Is this creepy or is it just me? Curse Doc Martens. By Relia09. It's probably not creepy or all that crazy to hear about, but having experienced myself, it was probably the most trippy thing that has ever happened to me. I like to call them my haunted Dr. Martens. I had or have these Dr. Martens shoes that I wore out for years until I finally got tired of them and decided I didn't want to wear them anymore. One day, I went to donate some clothes I didn't wear anymore and thought I'd taken them to those public donation bins I have always seen in my town for people to throw in their donated items. I take my clothes and decide that I want to donate those Doc Martens shoes as well. So, on a perfect sunny day, I drive over to one of those donation bins and start throwing my bag of clothes in there. I remember my Doc Martens were outside the bag. I grabbed them and tossed them into the bin. I vividly remember me standing there in front of the bin, tossing the Doc Martens and seeing them fly into the air, falling inside the bin, and feeling a relief that I finally got rid of them, since I had them inside my car for a while before finally deciding to drive them to the bin. A few weeks went by. Maybe a month. I was digging through my closet one day because I was looking for something, and as I opened another closet, I swear I was ready to shit bricks on the spot, because in the closet, there they were, my Doc Martens shoes neatly placed on the floor that I had thrown into the donation bin just a few weeks prior. The second I saw them in the closet, I literally shouted and fell back in shock and complete confusion. My brother was in the other room and heard me freaking out. Came over and asked me what was wrong because he just heard me shout and I couldn't even talk straight because I was generally tripping and confused as to why my Doc Martens shoes were back inside my closet, neatly placed on the floor, when I vividly remember tossing them into the donation bin that day. After that, I didn't like touching or seeing the shoes. I got too scared to try to get rid of them again, so I decided to leave them alone. It's been at least 5 years since that occurred, and I never saw those shoes again. Even after I moved, they haven't reappeared. And I'm a minimalist. I don't know where they are, and I hope it stays that way. Quick edit. I don't do drugs, by the way, and never have. I'm perfectly sane. My brother does, but he no longer remembers that day. Gustav woke up, and when he realized it was morning of his 5th birthday, the young boy rushed into his parents' room while they were still sleeping. It took far too many tragic lifetime loop restarts to decide his baby brother could not live past today, and it was almost a reflex by now. I think I was followed in Oklahoma City by Posmas. Hey everyone, I need to share something that happened to me a couple months ago because it still haunts me. I live in Oklahoma City, renting a small apartment. It's a quiet neighborhood, mostly old folks and a few families. But things started to feel off not long after I moved in. I came here after a rough breakup, hoping for a fresh start, but instead I've been on edge. It started with little things. I catch someone staring at me from across the street while I grab a coffee at the corner store. Or I hear a car idling outside my building late at night, and when I look out, it be gone. One night I couldn't sleep. I've been having trouble for days, my mind racing with the faint whispers, like I was hearing voices. But I knew it was just exhaustion and paranoia getting to me. Around 1 a.m., I decided to get some air, so I threw on a jacket and started walking down West Memorial Road towards Lake Overholser, about a 20-minute walk from my place. The streets were empty, the air cold and damp, and the street lights kept flickering as I passed under them, casting long shadows on the pavement. Every few steps, I swore I heard footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate, like someone was keeping pace with me. I turned around, my heart pounding, but there was nothing there, just the wind rustling some leaves. I kept walking faster now, trying to shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. When I got to the dam where the bridge crosses the lake, I stopped to catch my breath, the water lapping quietly against the shore. That's when I saw him, a tall, thin man standing by the water, just watching me. The moonlight barely lit the area, but I could see his outline, his head tilted slightly, like he'd been waiting for me. I'd been noticing for weeks that someone was following me, cars creeping by too slow, shapes and windows across the street, always just out of sight. My chest tightened and I grabbed a rock from the ground, my hand shaking as I threw it towards him. I heard a faint splash and he moved like he was stepping closer. I didn't wait to see what he'd do. I bolted towards the trees along the shore, my sneakers slipping on the wet grass. I tripped in the dark, went down hard, and nearly cracked my skull on a root. I lay there in the mud, heart pounding, thinking he'd find me. But after a few minutes of silence, I pulled myself up and ran back to my place, covered in dirt, my eyes bloodshot from the lack of sleep. I'm still shaken up thinking about that night. I'm sitting here now, looking out my window. My neighbor is mowing his lawn, but I can't shake the feeling he's watching me too. He glanced at my window earlier, and I swear he smirked like he knew something. I keep telling myself I'm fine, that it was just some creep, but I don't know what to think anymore. I hadn't gone back to the lake since, and I don't plan to. Let's not meet whoever you were. Almost all clowns know a bit of magic, sleight of hand, etc. So, if you think about it, they can just pick the lock on your front door if they want to get to you. The first time I was ever followed home by Altruistic Pepper 736. I was either in 7th or 8th grade when this story took place. It was a hot, humid summer day in the Midwest, and I lived in one of those true crime story towns. You know the type. Nothing bad happens here. Everyone knows everyone. The sun had just started to set when my softball game ended. Everyone was packing up to head home, and my little sister had already been driven home by our father. My coach had offered me a ride, but being an idiot and embarrassed to accept help, I turned him down. Again, the stupidest decision I could have made. In my head, my home was only across town, which wasn't that far. Besides, I had my bike, and I was already on thin ice when it came to leaving at other people's houses. So, once most people had left, I packed up my gear and began riding home. About 2 blocks in and around a corner, I noticed a beat-up car just behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it, small town and all. It wasn't like they were barreling towards me, and after another block, they were still following closely, and something told me I should take a second look. When I glanced back, alarm bells started ringing. In the car behind me was 2 college-aged guys I didn't recognize. When I say this town was tiny, I mean it. Our population was only 500, and I was pretty sure I hadn't seen these guys at least once. Plus, the nearest college was about a 40-minute drive away. But in an attempt to be friendly, I forced a smile as I looked at them. Neither of them smiled back. They didn't even look annoyed at me being in front of them. No, they were just staring at me, dead-eyed, as if they were fixated. At the time, I was a big fan of true crime, and I heard once that if you think someone is following you, you can try circling the block. If they're still there, chances are they're following you. I didn't have a phone back then, so I couldn't call anyone. Circling the block to calm my nerves seemed like the best option. I tried to rationalize it in my head. They're just trying to go home, Star. You're just paranoid, that's all. So I decided to circle the block. I started by taking 2 left turns, maintaining a steady pace and not looking back. My reasoning was that if they didn't know I knew they were following me, they might not do anything. But even as I did this, I could feel my body shaking, my mind racing for anyone nearby whose house I could go to, someone who might actually answer the door. They kept pace behind me, never speeding up to get ahead of me, never honking or trying to push me out of the way. But as we rounded the 3rd corner, panic really started to sink in. I threw Sully out the window and started pedaling as fast as I could, trying to make a full circle. As soon as I sped up, they did too. I had spotted a house I recognized, but the chance of someone being home and answering, slim to none. It was a block away, and to this day, I've never pedaled faster in my life. As soon as I reached the yard, I practically jumped off my bike, leaving it in the grass. I glanced back at them one last time, and just as I feared, they had stopped at the same spot where I left my bike. Both of them were staring at me, waiting. I chose the slide door instead of the front, hoping it'd be less obvious, but they could still see me. In the last moment of panic, I decided knocking wasn't a good idea. They realized this wasn't my house and someone might not be home. So instead, I flung open the screen door, tried to squeeze myself a little behind the main door to make it look like I was entering. I yelled, "I'm home," hoping they'd hear me. I don't know how, but maybe by some miracle, as soon as they heard that, they sped off down the street and I never saw them again. Once I had saw they left, I quickly ran around the back of the house, hiding behind the yard for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only about 15 minutes, before leaving my bike there and walking home, ducking behind trees and houses every time I heard a car. I made it home safe. I didn't cry, though my heart was pounding 1,000 times per minute. I told my father when I got home. He believed this experience was me making up excuses as to why I didn't bring home my bike. So, I never reported it. I can only hope that this was a misunderstanding and that they never tried this again. My 6 brothers and I were enslaved in our own home, forced to obey the commands of a woman who broke into our house and stole our free will through mind control. I knew we should have thrown out that intruder who could mind control animals just by singing, but my brothers were so blinded by her sob story about a jealous stepmother wanting her dead because of her beauty. Maintenance Man by Gloom Passenger 488. I, female, moved to a new apartment a few months ago and live alone. I have been continuously creeped out by the maintenance guy. I can't tell if he's just being nice and nosy or possibly has bad intentions. On my move-in day, he already knew me by name and was waiting by his truck to greet me. I'm 27 and he is probably in his 40s or 50s, and I think has mentioned that he has a daughter. In the first few weeks when I would work out in the gym, he would constantly walk by and I would catch him looking at me. The first time I had a maintenance request, he started texting me from his personal phone about the request, kept asking if I would be home, I was at work, and came and left the unit multiple times according to the texts. After he left, he texted me about how he noticed a magnet on my fridge from North Carolina and wanted to know why I had it, and started chatting about his personal life and how he used to live there. This was in the evening over text after the maintenance request was completed. I tried to be short and sweet with my replies because I didn't want to have a personal conversation with this man, but I didn't want to be rude. Also, seeing as I had 15 or so magnets from different places on my fridge, I thought it was weird that he was standing around reading all of them. He then started texting me every time I got a package to inform me it was delivered. The next time I had a maintenance request, he brought a package in for me. The package room is all the way across the complex, which may have been a nice gesture, but still felt a little strange to me. I sent him an email asking him to please communicate with me over email instead of text for organization reasons, because my texts delete frequently. This is not a lie, but the truth is I was feeling uncomfortable with the texting. He agreed to this. Last night I submitted a new request about my HVAC, and he sent me a message in the portal that he would be coming by in the afternoon. Again, I was at work. I didn't see an update posted about what he found or fixed online. When I got home from work, I see a note on my counter. It is handwritten to say he is not ignoring me, but he was advised by the office to not have direct written communication with the occupants. I would like to give the benefit of the doubt, but I expect the note to be an update about the maintenance request, and now I'm wondering why the office advised him not to talk to residents. Maybe someone else was uncomfortable with the text communication and told them? Also, the fact that he knew he is not supposed to communicate with me and chose to leave me a note anyways.
does not sit right with me. I told the genie I wished to be someone rich, blonde, and historically important. Now I'm trying to cancel my wish because these guardsmen are taking me to the guillotine while an angry crowd screams at me in French, I think. Not necessarily a glitch, but really fucking weird / unexplainable. By probinebriated. I work in a group home, and during the day, my clients go to a day program, so I'm home alone. This was about a month or more ago, and I have not stopped thinking about it. I was working alone, sitting on the front porch, listening to voice memos my friends had sent me. As I was listening, I was kind of looking around outside. It was a pretty day out. As I'm looking around, my eyes fall on the neighbor's house about 3 or 4 houses down. Now, it's probably good to note I'm supposed to wear glasses, but I can see that far away. My sight's not terrible, but that might hinder what people think of this. At that house, there was a woman standing on the porch who I'd never seen before, and I've worked here for almost a year. Again, my eyesight isn't terrible, but it's not great. So I couldn't tell if she was looking at me or the road, but she was staring somewhere, waving. I looked to the road to see if she was expecting company or something. The road's empty. It's a big, long, black road you can see if a car is coming from a ways away. It was empty. I look back at her after checking the road both ways. At this point, even through my bad vision, I can tell she is now 100% facing my direction, now waving wildly at me. But the most eerie part was her face. She was grinning ear to ear at me, smiling so big I can tell how hard she was smiling 3 to 4 houses down. It felt like I was in that stupid fucking Smile movie. I immediately was weirded out and started looking all around me to see if maybe there was someone else out here, maybe someone walking towards me. I'm alone outside. There's no one else there but me and her. She is staring directly at me, waving so wildly almost her entire body is moving with her arm, grinning ear to ear. I continue watching her for maybe 5 to 7 seconds, unsure what to do. It was so strange and was happening so fast I didn't know what was going on. I did a very confused, tiny wave back to her, as I'm the only possible person she could be looking at, smiling and waving. As soon as my hand fell from my tiny wave, she at the same time stopped smiling, stopped waving, and looked a mix between confused and pissed. She stared at me for a good 10 seconds like that, no longer smiling, no longer waving, but staring at me. I was seriously weirded out by now, so I kept eye contact, unsure what her next move would be. After staring at me like that, she just turned and went back into her house. Immediately, my mind is trying to make sense of what just happened in under a minute. I thought maybe it was a domestic situation and she was trying to flag down help without notifying whoever's inside. Maybe she's severely mentally ill / hallucinating. Maybe she's on drugs. To this day, I have no idea what that situation was, what she was doing, or what she was trying to do. I still work at the same place and have never seen her in general or at that house again. Never saw her before that, haven't seen her after. I was so spooked I called my supervisor. She said, "Was it the big Hispanic lady?" I said no. It was a skinny little white lady. She said, I'm not sure who that is, but probably just drugs, and she didn't really care. I guess I shouldn't either, but it was by far top 3 weirdest things I've ever experienced.
And my friends tell me to watch out, or I'll be in the next Smile movie. Still haven't seen her since though, so hopefully I'm good, and it was just a weird one-off thing. Super unsettling though. Quick side note for me, 242. OP was unsure when they posted this in Glitch in the Matrix, so I completely agree, it's not a glitch in the Matrix, so I moved it to a different video. I hope you guys agree. Returning from a military deployment, I was shocked to catch my wife sleeping with my doppelganger that I shot him dead. But not as shocked as when my sobbing wife later revealed they were celebrating my first successful time travel jump the scientists will have me do to prove that future is unalterable. How I almost got kidnapped by R1L4 Kuma. Let me start off by saying this happened around a few years ago at a party/get-together. All my cousins were there, and so were my aunts and uncles and my parents. We were just chilling when we decided to sit outside. I sat outside next to my cousin and was just talking and laughing and just being goofy. Now, for some context, it was midday, and right where I was sitting with my cousin, there was a tree, and behind that tree is the road. While I was sitting, I wanted to get some water, so I went to the table, which was somewhat near, and grabbed a bottle of water. While I grabbed the water, in the corner of my eye, I saw someone behind the tree. So I turned around to get a better look, and there was a person crouched behind the tree. Now I got a very iffy feeling from it when the old guy called me over and asked my age. From where I was from, it was really common for people to ask others about their age, name, things like that. So I just told him how old I was, and he started grinning and motioned me to come with him. I didn't know who he was, but I knew for certain he wasn't anyone from the party/get-together. I had never seen him before, and neither had anyone else. I was obviously alarmed and wasn't stupid to follow him, so from a distance I asked him what he wanted. He said that he was going to take me to his big motorcycle. P.S. That so-called big motorcycle was a lie. He had an old beat-up bicycle that was old and rusty. I didn't know what to do, so I kind of just ran around hoping that would do something. I noticed the guy was drunk and he kept following me. He continued for about 10-ish minutes. After a while, he got tired as he was drunk, and I was, well, basically tiring him out, and he decided to just go home on his bicycle. I haven't seen him since, and this happened near my town. I have no clue if he was even from our town or where he came from, but it freaked me out at the time. Now, the part that freaks me out the most personally is that no one knew him. The only people invited or even knew about this party were my relatives and friends, and it was a mainly indoors party. I slept over my boyfriend's apartment for the first time tonight. I must have forgotten to mention the fact that I sleepwalk, and he clearly forgot to tell me he leaves the balcony door open at night, because I woke up falling. The time my brother and I saw a creepy man on our lawn by OK Effective 357. This is something that happened to me when I was around 7 years old, and it's been on my mind a lot lately. I wanted to share it because it's one of those memories that never fully leaves you, even if it's a little blurry now. So my younger brother, who was 6 at the time, and I were hanging out in my bedroom. We were on my bed, eating candy and watching YouTube on my iPad. Pretty much what we did every chance we got then. Our house was 2 stories and our room was a window facing the front yard. At some point, I think I was the one who glanced outside, and that's when I saw him. There was an old man standing on the lawn smoking a cigarette. I don't remember what he was wearing, but I can still picture him standing near the porch. The thing is, I can only see him from the side. I never fully saw his face. Now, here's the part that really shook me. I knew for a fact our front door wasn't locked. My siblings and I were supposed to lock the door when we got home from school, but we almost never did because we lived in a safe neighborhood and nothing bad ever happened. So it doesn't seem like a big deal until it suddenly was. My brother and I freaked out and immediately ran down the hall to our older brother's room. He was probably around 14 or 15 at the time, completely absorbed in his Xbox. We burst in, screamed, and desperate for him to help, and told him what we saw. And you know what he did? Absolutely nothing. I remember him seeming confused at first, and then he shrugged it off and told us it was probably one of our dad's friends. Which, thinking back, made 0 sense. I don't remember if I brought it up to my dad, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of his friends. If it was, he would have reassured me back then, and I feel like I wouldn't still be this unsettled about it. My older brother didn't lock the door, didn't check to see if the guy was still there, and definitely didn't grab anything for protection. He just wanted to get back to his game. He reassured us in the laziest way possible, then kicked us out of his room. And because we were little kids, we trusted him. We tried to convince ourselves that everything was fine. We didn't look out the window again. Honestly, we were too scared. We ended up hiding under the covers in my room and pretending like it never happened. We just went back to watching YouTube. Nothing bad happened that day, no break-ins, no scary aftermath, but to this day, I wonder who that man was and why he was there. Part of me wishes I could go back and demand a real answer from my older brother, but at this point, I doubt he even remembers it. So, yeah, that's the story. Moral of it all? Maybe just lock your doors. Safe neighborhood or not, you never know who might show up on your lawn. And to the man, whoever you were, let's not meet.
If genies were real, I'd totally trade lives with one. The girl sighed, picking up an antique bottle in my thrift store. Try my best to mask my elation after 1,000 years of bondage, I casually remarked. If you really believe that, you should say it as a wish.
Weird Place by Anonymoose. Okay, so this happened a long time ago, and I never thought of writing this all down, so here we go, I guess. I grew up in a low-income area in London, early 90s. It was tough, but we had fun. Me and my friends used to get up to mischief a lot. One of our preferred ways to pass time was to go to the Gulfie, albeit that just meant climbing a wall that separated our neighborhood from a golf course and collect the lost golf balls. I don't know why we did it, but hey, we were young, and the fluorescent yellow balls were kinda cool to us. Anyhow, during one summer break from school, I went out and met up with my best friend. No one else was around that day, which was weird because usually the neighborhood was teeming with our friend group. I know that seems trivial, but the whole neighborhood was unusually quiet. Strange vibe because I remember it was a perfect day. We wandered around talking for a while and inevitably got bored, and he suggested a trip to the Gulfie to see if we could find any balls. So off we went on the short walk. We got there after a short walk. It wasn't far, but I remember that we just couldn't find anyone around. I don't know, it was bizarre to say the least. Like we could hear normal neighborhood noises as you would expect, but we just never encountered anyone. I remember we commented on being strange and actually surmised that maybe all our friends had the same idea as us and would be at the Gulfy waiting for us. Not unusual given none of us had phones and we just randomly meet up in a few places, most of which we had already been in the past at this point. So we arrived at the wall that we usually scrambled over to get to the Gulfy. He hopped up before me and sat astride it to pull me up. Once we were both up, we looked at each other perplexed. I generally remember to this day the confusion in his face. We looked over at the place we had been hundreds of times before, and it was different. Instead of a small wooden area that gave onto the golf course, it was a huge paved area full of rows of greenhouses and odd-looking square areas that looked like they were meant to be for plants. These greenhouses were not new though. Matter of fact, they looked abandoned, old, and not taken care of. Most of them had plastic sheets over the side where the glass used to be, and they were flapping gently in the summer breeze. The square areas had weeds and the sort growing out of them, likewise the paved slabs that made up the floor. We sat there for a while watching. We had no clue what to make of it all. Obviously, this was too good to be true in our minds, and once the initial surprise wore off, curiosity set in. We both hopped down and began to explore the place. I know it sounds banal, but the whole area was just off. Like, it didn't seem normal. I can't explain it to this day, but we were sticking close to each other, even though we were laughing and kidding as we went further in. We looked into the greenhouses, and they were just full of run-down equipment of some sort and overgrown with weeds and plants. After 20 minutes of exploration, I remember we stopped and looked around kinda in disbelief at how big this whole area was. We hadn't changed direction, and now in the middle of all of it, could neither see the neighborhood nor the golf course. This is when it got really fucked. As we were stood there, my friend looked at me and said, "Can you hear that?" The look on his face was dead serious, and I stood still listening. "What?" I asked him back. He just put his finger on his lips and listened more. Then I heard it. Like a really low hum, like the type high voltage of electricity makes. I don't know, something between a hum and a buzz. As we stood there, it got louder and louder, as if it was getting closer, but not from any particular direction, from all around us. We started a brisk walk back to where we came. The buzz kept getting louder until we panicked and started to run. As we ran, and I mean full sprint, through these weird constructions, we started to hear something behind us. I can't explain it. Almost a mechanical noise, like not a human or animal. The plastic sheeting and the way the place was laid out made it impossible to see anything more than 10 to 15 meters. So we never saw what it was, but it was there, right behind us. We must have ran hard for 3, maybe 4 minutes in pure adrenaline, and I remember getting to that wall completely empty and using the last bit of energy I had left to climb over it. Once over it, both of us threw up, probably from the fact that we just sprinted so hard for so long. We made our way back through the neighborhood, and everything seemed normal again. People, cars, activities, etc. It was business as usual. The fucked up part is, once we explained what had happened to our friend group, they obviously all wanted to see what we had found and what had chased us. Understandably, because it sounded insane. The next day, a whole group of us, maybe 10 to 12, went back to see the place. It wasn't there, and I swear we went up and down the wall for an hour looking for it. It just wasn't there. There's no way it was in some other place. We only used the wall to get there, and given the sheer size of the area, even if we were off by 100 to 200 meters, we would have seen it. Nothing. Literally nothing. Me and my friend occasionally spoke about it, like, hey, remember that day? But never really more than that. Then, I guess life happened, and we went our different ways. Hell, maybe he'll read this and recognize the story. Either way, only 2 of us knew about it until now. Fucking weird place. Unnerved with the clown statue in the living room, the babysitter was about to call the parents to ask if she could cover it until she saw its eyes move. Hours later, she was interrogated by the police as the parents were arrested for punishing their oldest child for clowning about by encasing him in hot molten wax and turning him into a clown statue. I found the same random obscure toy car from my childhood while cleaning the first house I bought, almost 30 years later, by ZSki843. I'm a first-generation immigrant to the United States. When my parents and I moved here in the early 90s, I was 4 years old. Given us just moving to a new country, I didn't have much. My dad cleaned pools, and most of the toys I had were toys that were left behind by other kids. I remember having a collection of several toy cars, but never recalled which was my favorite. This was around 1992 to 1994. At some point, as I got a little bit older, I'm sure my parents donated the toys to charity. I'm assuming this was the mid to late 90s. Fast forward to 2017, I'm 29 years old, and my longtime girlfriend and I, now my wife and mother to my beautiful baby, finally buy our first house. We are excited. We move all of our stuff into the garage and throughout the living room over the past week, since we were renting only 1.5 miles up the road. We're cleaning up some of the spots the cleaners had missed. We move this huge sectional couch they left for us. And as we pull it back, I find the same exact toy car that I had when I was 4 to 5 or so years old. I haven't thought about it in decades, but I instantly remember that it was my favorite because it was higher than the other cars I had, so it rolled across the carpet better. I know the family before us had 2 kids, I think a bit older, maybe 7 and 10 or so. What are the odds that this was the only toy left behind by them? What are the odds of these kids playing with such an old, obscure toy car? I looked it up. It was produced in 1984. It was pretty random for me to be playing with it 10 years later when I had it, but it was extremely random for kids to be playing with it 40 years after it was released. I know it was mass-produced, but they weren't mass-produced on the scale they are today. I know it's not a super unique toy car, but the odds of this happening is just crazy. I can't explain it. I still have it and will always keep it because it's just such a bizarre occurrence.
Julie reached out and broke the circle to pet her cat, forgetting she did not have one. Her lower half was found safe and sound inside the pentagram, but that was all that was left. Spontaneous Human Invisibility by One Fellow Swoop 70.
A weird thing has been happening to me now for about 10 to 15 years, and I still can't find a logical explanation. So I thought I'd see if anyone else has ever been informed that they have disappeared. The first time this happened was several years ago while I was fishing at my favorite trout stream. My fiance at the time, I'll call her Chloe, was with me, and she had recently broken her leg and was wearing a cast and using crutches. She was going crazy being cooped up all day and wanted to do something outdoorsy. So we drove to a spot, a place I know like the back of my hand, and she decided to sit on this large rock and read while I went downstream along a path that runs along the edge of the creek. At the end of this path, which is just wide enough for one person, is a small parking area for the Appalachian Trail. The distance between where I parked and this parking area is about 300 yards. After about an hour, I head back to the rock to check on Chloe and find she's not there. I check the car, call out her name, but there's no sign of her. Thinking she may have gone into the bushes to use the bathroom or to stretch her legs, I return back the way I had come and continue fishing my way down to the AT parking lot, where I find her crying hysterically. According to Chloe, she got called into work later that afternoon and was trying to find me to let me know that we had to go home. She said she had called out my name several times. I didn't hear anything, until she finally decided to come looking for me. Now, the weird thing is that I was fishing from the bank, standing on the path. I never wandered into the water or crossed the stream. There's no possible way someone on crutches would have passed me without directly bumping into me. Yet she insisted that I was nowhere to be found. There have been other times when people are generally startled to see me, claiming they had walked into a room seconds earlier and I wasn't there. Most recently, about a year ago, this happened while I was sitting in my office at work. I was in my chair, but not facing my desk. A coworker who often uses my work computer to print things out walked in and literally sat on me. She let out a blood-curdling cry and swore the chair was empty. She was shaking and her face was white as a sheet, and she's one of the most reliable and trustworthy people I know. The chair was black and I was wearing a powder blue shirt and jeans, so it's not like I blended into the scenery. I've tried chalking it up to practical jokes, but 15 years is a long time to pull a prank involving multiple people in different locations who don't know each other. I've read about time slips, astral projections, and dimensional shifts, but none of these seem quite right, as I did not experience any loss of time or consciousness, and at no time did I ever feel like anything was off or out of the ordinary. In fact, I'm just as terrified to hear that I disappeared as much as the people who claim to have witnessed it. So, if anyone can tell me what the heck is going on, it would be quite helpful. For the record, I'm in perfect physical and mental health, but never seen a ghost or UFO or Bigfoot, have no special supernatural talents or psychic abilities, and I don't drink or use any drugs, prescription or otherwise.
Women and children first, the captain ordered from the bunker entrance to the panicked crowd desperate for safety. If its appetite is satisfied, it might spare the rest of us, he shouted as he opened the door for the terrified young and female survivors to be shoved through to the carnage outside. Lost Cooler appears in our new house by Loves to Read 211.
So before my husband and I got married, we were in high school. He got this little red cooler at the senior all-night party. He didn't use it terribly often, but it was nice to have over the years. The last time we used it, it was 4 years ago. We were visiting back home with our baby girl in his tiny Honda Civic. Truck was full of our luggage, so the cooler was in the back seat on top of the diaper bag so we could still reach food and bottles. We pulled over into this big empty lot so I could change her diaper on the fly, and the cooler got left by accident in the parking lot because I didn't have room in the back seat while changing her, and we just drove off without it because frazzled new parents. We realized a couple blocks later when I reached for a bottle and went back, but the cooler was gone, so my husband ran into the nearby buildings to see if anyone had brought it inside. But no luck. It was gone. He left his number anyway in case it was found, but never got a call. Not the end of the world because we could just get more soda and had bought extra cans of formula for the baby. But it was a bummer because my mother-in-law had given us a ton of fresh fruit to snack on for the drive home that was now completely gone. We were disappointed, but we moved on with our lives because we were in a small house and didn't travel very much. We didn't bother replacing it right away because my dad had a dozen he barely used and gave us a comparable little blue one at some point, which we still have. And we also bought one blue one with some wheels. Years passed and I forgot all about it. We even moved to a new house in a new town 3 hours away since we lost that cooler. We bought the new house about a year ago, and today I was getting a little picnic together for my daughter and I grabbed a random cooler from the storage room in the basement, which is 100% confirmed to be haunted, but anyway. My husband was busy, so my daughter and I did our thing without him. Now, we're at home and my husband just went inside to get the car to grab something when I remembered I left the cooler I used in the car and asked him to bring it in since some of the leftovers needed to go into the fridge. He was flabbergasted to recognize the lost cooler. Once he reminded me that we lost it and gave up hope years ago, I recognized it too. Sure, maybe not the exact same cooler since he never put his name on it or anything, but we just compared it to pics from the senior party where he got it from, and it's 100% the same brand and model of cooler. Now, I'm 100% sure we never ended up with another red cooler after that. They've been blue since then, and I'm 100% sure we never got it back. And I'm 100% sure there was no red cooler left behind in our new, to us, house. But there it was, mixed in with the other coolers and random totes in our storage room. We're super stoked it's back because it's a pretty nice little cooler, but we have no idea where it came from. It's like the universe or God or whatever you believe in just said, "Here's your cooler back, idiots."
As a dutiful mother, I was very careful when I cooked meals for my children, making sure that I always checked the packaging before buying anything to make sure it was safe. After years of disrespect, I finally decided to let the ungrateful little shits have a special dessert to go along with their last meal: chocolate peanut butter cake.
Yep, I'm back again. Now it's Wormholes or something by Almost-Jaded. I really thought it was done with glitch. Most of you probably don't even know me or my old posts. Maybe some of you do. I'm still in the no harm in ramp universe. Been here for years now. I'm used to it. No other significant glitches. But now, here we are. 2 more, and there's a witness both times. Look into my profile for my previous experiences. I'm not going to recap them. 1. January of 2020, driving my girlfriend up to Provo, Utah area from Las Vegas. The trip is just over 400 miles from my current address, door to door. It takes exactly 5.5 hours. I've been in Las Vegas for 20 years. I have a lot of family and friends up in Utah. I've made this trip a lot. My current car makes it without gas stops almost exactly. Nearly empty if I make a drive without gassing up. I often stop at a Shell station in Beaver, Utah, to top off and stretch my legs. If I stop, that's where. Past Cedar City, check the weather again, because it's January and the pass over Beaver is nasty in the winter. Google still says it's all clear. Sweet. Talking to the girlfriend, good conversation, enjoying the music. Now we are approaching Fillmore. Fillmore is well north of Beaver. There's a whole significant mountain pass in between, not to mention the miles. We looked at each other. Where's Beaver? Could we have gotten so caught up in talking and listening to music that we missed it? Look at the clock. We'd gone from right on time to well over an hour ahead of schedule, and still had over a half a tank of gas. Arriving at her family's house almost 90 minutes early with more than a quarter tank of gas. Trip meter says we drove 298 miles from the gas station near the freeway in Vegas to her parents' house. Roughly 120 miles simply disappeared. To this day, her father accuses me of driving irresponsibly fast with his daughter in the car on that trip. On the plus side, she's always been skeptical of my glitch stories. She's not anymore. I didn't come here to post about it, because at this point, I don't know, I'm kinda over it to be honest. But then, 2. Last week, back in Provo/Orem, Utah. The trip up together was 400 miles in over 5 hours this time, so there's that. Stop by her parents' place to chat, have to get her to a doctor's appointment, a specialist she sees up there. We leave her parents' house a little late, gotta hurry to make the appointment. They live off of 800 East, near 1000 South by the University Mall in Orem. I always put locations in case there are locals listening. We're going to an office off of 800 South and roughly 800 West at the top of the hill on 800 North, before it drops down onto the I-15 ramps. I'll take 800 East all the way up to 800 North and turn left. Go straight to it, no biggie. As we rest up 800 East, I started to signal a left turn before realizing I'm too early. This stoplight is Central Street, and that is definitely the slow route. Glad I caught myself. I passed through the intersection and continued to the next light, which is 1200 North, and there was no stop signal for 400 North. I immediately started initially freaking out, thinking I zoned out and missed something, and I'm going to make her late, but she saves me. Where did 80th North go? How are we at 20th? We never even went through the stop sign at 4th. Okay, good. Not just me. I'm thinking I just missed the light. No, we started to turn at center. I almost said something, but you caught it. Then we are here. We never crossed 800 North. Yep. Did we just do that thing again? Yep. Last time, at least it made us early. Now I'm going to be late. She was only a few minutes late, and they were running behind. No great loss. But here I am, posting about teleporting in glitch again. At least now I have someone in my life that can verify, and she doesn't think my other stories are crazy anymore. No sensation or any weirdness either time, no indication that anything happened. Just went from one place to another, literally in a blink of an eye, with no indication that anything happened other than suddenly being elsewhere. Last time this happened was a previous post. Me and a car full of Uber passengers skipping the airport terminal and ended up on the freeway connector back in 2018. Hi Glitch, I'm back.
Few years ago, he saw his son drawing the moon imploding, and the moon actually imploded a few days later. Yesterday, he found a drawing made by his son where massive tentacles were coming from Jupiter towards Earth.
Creepiest experience I had at work by Khepri son. I like to preface this by telling you guys that this is not a fictional story. This happened to me on April the 19th, and there's a trigger warning about a man being inappropriate with minors. I work in an arcade or fun center with a ball pit and bouncing house. Most of our customers are nice people, but there will always be an aberrant few among the crowd, one in which I encountered on my most recent shift. This isn't the first time I had seen the man, though. We had first met a few weeks prior. He brought his 11-year-old son and his 2 friends to the arcade. I was stationed at the bouncy house that day. I thought it was odd that I hadn't seen him before because he had a membership, and I had been working here for almost a year. The 3 young boys ran into the bouncy house, and the man sat on a bench right next to me where I was standing, even though all the others were empty. He didn't look shady or anything. He wore black sweatpants and a gray t-shirt that matched his sneakers. He had short, curly hair and light brown skin that was dusted with freckles. His deep brown eyes seemed to sparkle as he looked up at me and smiled. I grinned and asked how he was doing, and we fell into a pleasant conversation easily. He asked me what my name was, and he introduced himself as David, fake name. He was kind and charming, and at first I appreciated his company. As we talked about our day, he began to slip details of his life into his sentences. How he loved his son and thought it was amazing that I was good with kids. I said the boys were well-mannered and were a pleasure to have, which is a statement I stand by. He paused for a few seconds and sighed as he said, "Yeah, but it's hard out here being a single dad." I sympathized with him because my mother was single for a long time after a divorce from my father. She works herself to the bone every day, and I'll never forget everything she does to give us a great life. That's why I didn't find this comment too strange. However, soon after he became more direct, continuing to emphasize that he was single. He asked if I was in college. I was a bit more firm as I disclosed the fact that I am in high school. He smiled and asked me, "How old do you think I am?" I kept it cool, thinking maybe he was just playing around. I looked at his face for a moment and guessed he was 28 based on the subtle creases in his face and a few strands of gray hair. He wore a boyish grin and laughed as he said, "Nah, I'm 32. I was surprised. I told him I thought he was younger than that. I was trying to be nice. Another chuckle escaped his lips as he hummed and nodded. He turned away to look at the kids again. After a few seconds, he turned back to face me and asked the question I had been dreading. "How old are you?" His eyes were laced with something I couldn't define, an insidious twinkle that made my heart drop. I had the feeling this was coming, though I didn't want to believe it. I had hoped he was trying to be friendly, but a deep pit had formed in my stomach. Something wasn't right. The flirting was obvious now, and I wasn't sure what to do. "I'm 17, I said curtly. He raised his eyebrow and smirked again. With an eager expression, he asked me what my birthday was. I tried my best to be obtuse, but I tend to worry about coming across as rude. My birthday's in May, I stammered. I cursed at myself for revealing the fact that I would soon be legal age, and I was terrified that he saw that as a sign to continue flirting. As he was about to ask me something else, another parent came to me and asked me a question. Astonishing relief swept through my body as I eagerly stepped away from Donald and spoke with the other parent. More people began to trickle into the area, and I made sure to talk to as many other parents as I could to look busy. Around 15 minutes later, most of the parents and kids trickled out again, leaving me isolated with Donald. He scooted from the middle of the bench to be closer to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his eyes trail up and down my body, his gaze falling onto my hand. He seemed to notice my claddagh ring that I was wearing. "You married? You have a boyfriend?" His voice was laced with urgency. I thought I was going to burst into tears then and there. I was so taken aback by his question that I couldn't even come up with a lie. "No, I'm just working on myself. I'm enjoying being single." I did my best to sound confident, but my voice still shook with apprehension, threatening to break. "Good for you. How old are you again?" He cocked his head like a curious dog. "I'm 17, I said even more firmly. I want this man to leave me alone, but I didn't want him to lie about me being rude to him. Kids still remained in the bouncy house, so I couldn't leave the area. That's cool. I really respect that, you know. If you ever need to chill and hang out, you can give me your number. You can come to my place." He smiled widely, but his Stygian eyes cut through me like a blade. I nodded vaguely as I stormed away to look at something in the bouncy house. Tears threatened to spill down my face as I tried to steady my breathing. The last threads of my composure were beginning to snap. I took deep breaths, and as if heaven sent, the kids with Donald ran out of the bouncy house and asked him to go to the ball pit. The boys grabbed their shoes hurriedly and scurried out the gate as if they were late to an appointment. I faced the exit to watch them leave. As Donald trailed slowly behind the boys, he turned back to face me and said, "See you soon." I turned my back to him as the silent tears slipped down my face. He left shortly afterwards. Now that you have context, I'll tell you what happened on the 19th. I was working at the ball pit that day, and everything had been going smoothly so far, even though I was sick with a fever of 102. I decided to wear a mask to keep others safe, and because the ball pit is the equivalent of a petri dish. I had been kicking stray foam balls away from the gate when the door sensor chimed. I walked over to look at the front, and I saw Donald's children and his two friends run inside. Donald walked in a second later, and I thought I was going to faint. Unfortunately for me, him and his children came over to the ball pit first. I let them in wordlessly, not even looking at Donald's face. The kids ran inside, and interesting enough, he didn't say anything to me. He didn't even look at me. I don't think he recognized me with the mask, at least not at first. As the kids played, he sat on one of the benches, playing with his phone. The ball pit was busy at the time, so I felt safer knowing that I was surrounded by other parents. The universe seemed to be vouching for me that day because I got my break about 5 minutes later. I took my break outside. My mother and father called me, insisting I tell my manager that he is back. I assured them that I would spend the rest of the time finishing up an episode of a podcast. After I clocked back in, Donald left the ball pit and I was alone. I decided to spend some time cleaning up the place since I had nothing better to do. I made sure to keep looking behind me though, just in case. I spent some time picking up balls on my hands and knees, and I got up to sweep some more out of the way of the gate. As I walked towards the outside of the gate, I saw Donald walking around with his phone up, very obviously filming. He was alone, and he was walking quickly with purpose. He filmed the front of the ball pit and his camera started sweeping towards my direction. I turned away quickly, not wanting to be filmed. I leaned quietly against a section of the fence, waiting for him to leave. I stayed there for about 30 seconds. When I turned back around, he was still there, less than 2 feet behind me now. He jerked his phone away from my direction and stormed off towards the other section. I hoped he was showing the ball pit to someone over FaceTime, trying to block thoughts of his possible malice out of my mind. But a question still remained. How long had he been filming? My manager was nowhere in sight, so I decided it was the best to stay there and monitor everyone else that came in or out of the area. Quickly, a family of regulars shuffled into the ball pit, a mother and 4 children between the ages of 2 and 8. We didn't have many customers at the time, so I could help them collect the balls and play with them, which eased my anxiety. We played for around 15 minutes, and I got up again to watch the gate. That's when Donald came back, once again, without his children. His phone was pointed at the ball pit again. He was leaning on the gate right behind me, and his phone was pointed directly at the group of young children. I finally had enough, and I walked up to him, speaking in a sharp, concerned tone. "Sir, please do not film children you don't know." He looked at me blankly and replied, "I'm not. I'm showing my wife, see?" He flashed the phone at me, which showed a woman on the screen. He pulled his phone back towards his chest quickly, but not quick enough to deprive me of the details. The woman's face was completely still, and the camera in the bottom right corner did not show my reflection, even though his phone was pointed right at me. He wasn't on FaceTime with anyone. It was a fucking screenshot. He held his phone tight and practically jogged away, gathering his children and leaving shortly after. My mind raced through a million questions. I thought he was a single father. Did he lie about being single, or did he lie about being married just now? Was he taking pictures or video of me before? What about the children? These questions stewed in my head as our store neared closing hours. As soon as I saw my manager, I spilled my guts about what happened, throwing in every detail I had about the weird stuff Donald was doing. My manager was horrified and wanted to ban him right there and then. He texted the head manager immediately, but I told him to wait on banning him. The manager was puzzled and asked why I would want to do that. I was honest with him. I told him that I was worried. If Donald gets banned from our establishment the day after I called him out, he's probably going to realize it had something to do with me. I'm scared that he'll be angry. I don't want him to come after me. He doesn't know much about me, but plenty of people are savvy enough to find out. He nodded silently and said that everything was going to be taken care of. I thanked him and left for the evening. I don't know what's going to happen or how this will be resolved, but I don't think this man should be trusted around children. I never want to see him again, but if I do, I pray to God that we are not alone. Since I was the only Boy Scout of the group, my friends put me in charge while we waited for rescue. I obeyed all the Scout rules about how to build us a shelter and find water, but since there was no grown-up supervision, we decided to skip boiling the water.
Owl Hollow by Potential Ad 697. I honestly don't even know why I'm saying this. It's not like anyone's going to believe me anyway. Maybe it's just to get it out of my head. Maybe it's some kind of warning. I don't know. Last October, I went hiking alone near Mount Hood. I was trying to get away from everything. Work, noise, people.
I found this spot on an old Forest Service map called Owl Hollow near Jordan Creek. Sounded perfect, secluded, quiet, barely even mentioned online. The first 2 hours were fine, peaceful even, just the sound of the creek and my boots crunching gravel. It felt good, like I could breathe again. But sometime in the afternoon, that feeling started creeping in. You know the one. Like somebody's watching you. At first, I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being stupid. Big woods, alone. Of course you're going to feel jumpy. But it kept getting worse. Around 3 p.m., I looked off to the trail into the trees, and there were a pair of eyes staring at me through the bush. Not blinking, just watching. It wasn't a deer. I know what deer look like. It was different, lower to the ground. Wrong shape, no sound at all. I kept hiking, probably faster than I should have. About an hour later, I came around a bend, and there they were, a man and a woman standing in the middle of the trail. I don't know how to explain it. Everything about them just felt off immediately. Their clothes were weird, like they walked out of an old photograph. Faded colors, stiff fabric, almost dusty. I tried to say hello, maybe ask if they needed help, but my voice just kinda died. They didn't say anything either, just stared. And when they passed me, they both turned their heads at the same time and smiled. I can't even describe it right. It wasn't human. Their mouths stretched way too wide, and their teeth were wrong, sharp and dirty, and their eyes fucking turned black. Not like dark irises black, like bottomless pits. I almost threw up. I almost ran. But they just kept walking like nothing had happened, disappearing into the woods behind me. I should have left right then. I should have turned around, sprinted back to my truck, never looking back. But I didn't. I kept going. Dumbass. By the time I set up camp that night, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the tent up. It didn't matter. I wasn't sleeping anyway. As the sun went down, the woods around me got wrong. Too quiet. No birds, no bugs. Nothing but the creek and the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. Then I started seeing them. First one, then two, then more. 17 or 18 of them, crouching in the trees, peeking from behind rocks, half buried in the tall grass. All with the same twisted smiles, all with those black eyes. I sat there by the fire, clutching my pistol, feeling like I was going to pass out from terror. They didn't move. They didn't get closer. They just watched. I don't know what snapped, but I stood up and fired 2 shots straight into the air. The sound echoed through the trees, sharp and painful. They didn't even flinch. That's when I ran. I grabbed my pack and ran like my life depended on it because, honestly, I think it did. I don't remember getting back to my car. I don't even remember driving home. I just remember slamming the door behind me and sitting there in the dark for hours, shaking, gun still in my hand. I haven't told anyone until now. People would think I'm crazy. Hell, I think I'm crazy sometimes when I replay it in my head. But I know what I saw. And I'm telling you, if you ever find yourself near Owl Hollow, turn around, get out while you can. Some places are better off forgotten. Trying to get this story out so someone can help me make sense of it, or maybe refer me to a psychologist. I held the knife in my throat, watching my assailant run off with my wallet and cell phone. Whatever you do, don't remove the blade, I told myself as I collapsed on the steps of urgent care, which was closed for another 29 minutes.
Stalker by CAssist3873. I'm a long-time lurker, so thought I'd finally share this post with everyone. At the time, my family and I lived in Liverpool in the northwest of England in the early 2000s. Where we're from has always been notorious for its substance problem, and being one of the most deprived areas in the country. I'm the youngest of 4, who are all a few years older than me. And by the time I was in high school, were already starting their own families. It was just me and my mom at home. She worked as a nurse and was sometimes assigned to night shifts. So I was often left alone, apart from the neighbors checking in once in a while, which I didn't mind. When Mom worked, I completed simple household tasks like cleaning and putting the wash on the line outside. We didn't have a back garden. We had a garden on the front of the house. In the summer, I leave the front door open so I could get in and out easier to let some fresh air into the house, which wasn't uncommon on the estate as most had kids which would be running in and out of each other's houses all day. I started noticing that some of my clothes would go missing off the line, particularly underwear, but I just shrugged it off as the wind blowing it off or some kid's idea of a joke. But it started happening every time there was a washout, even where no kids were outside playing. We didn't own a dryer, so there was no other option but to put the clothes outside to dry, so more and more items kept going missing. Then more disturbing things started happening, such as me going upstairs and returning to the front door being wide open when I left it closed, or the entire washing line being pulled down, with only certain items being taken from the pile. I'd also often find hand smudges on the window that I convinced myself were from me opening and closing them. I thought I was just being paranoid, but was still scared and didn't want to be alone, especially of a night as my imagination got the better of me. So I explained to my brother about the strange things I had noticed and if he could pick me up and take me to his house for the night. The next morning, my brother got a call from my mom asking if I was with him and to return home to clean up the mess I had left. My brother came with me so he could explain to my mom that I was extremely paranoid and anxious, as he knew she was stressed from the long shift and would not be lenient on me for leaving a mess. Once we got home, I noticed there were dirty footprints throughout the house, which were definitely too big to be mine or my mom's, that were not there when I left. My mom was pacing around the living room in a huff, pointing and shouting about pillows being thrown around and glass/plates being left laying around unwashed. I had my brother's word to back me up that it had definitely not been left this way when he had picked me up. She was confused as to who else would have made the mess since I was the last person in the home. She asked me to clean it up as she was going to bed and to make sure that everything was tidy for when she woke up. When she reached the top of the stairs, she started calling my brother's name. Every door upstairs was open and every room had been rifled through. Both my and my mom's underwear drawers had been flung open, with clothes covering the floor. Both beds had been untidy as if someone had slept in them, with cigarette butts flicked onto the floor. It was obvious that someone else had been in the house, and it seemed they made themselves feel at home. My brother sent me and Mom downstairs to phone the police as he checked the rest of the house. He noticed the bathroom light on and noticed that whoever had been here had run themselves a bath, which they had forgotten to drain, and had left a ring around the tub, and made a cup of tea. Resting on the toilet were multiple pairs of me and my mom's underwear, which had been soiled by them, which at this point my brother had to leave the bathroom and wait for the police. When the police finally came, they told us it was most likely a homeless person or someone on drugs who wanted a bed to sleep in for the night, since nothing was actually taken, including a ring on Mom's dresser, which was clearly in sight, and there was nothing much they could do other than suggest we make sure that all the windows and doors are locked. After that, I wasn't allowed to stay home alone of a night anymore, just in case something similar were to happen again. But nothing ever did, apart from underwear occasionally going missing off the line. I'm not sure if this was a stalker situation or the police were right. It was just a coincidence, but it still freaks me out. Will you gamble and spin one more time to win our jackpot prize of 10 million tonight? Asked the game show host. She thought hard for a few minutes before nodding and nervously loading the third bullet into the revolver. Skinwalker Encounters in Our Town in Germany by Who TF is J. I live in a small village surrounded by forest in Bavaria, Germany, and me and my friends who live there with me had many encounters with skinwalkers or something else in and around the forest. The first encounter happened about 3 years ago with me and my friend who were a bit drunk because we were doing a campfire in the garden with some other friends at night, and we wanted to walk a bit with the dog. We wanted to walk a path that enters a forest when our dog suddenly got very anxious, and that's when we felt like an aura of something that absolutely didn't want us there. We looked up at the path to see if there was something, and then we saw a tall, pale figure standing behind a tree staring at us. The first one who ran was our dog. The last big encounter was 5 months ago when I had to walk home at 11:30 at night from a neighboring village about 2 kilometers away because my bus didn't drive directly to my village. Most of the time it's pretty chill walk with nothing going on, just normal feeling of anxiety because it's dark. But this one time was different. The path my village follows is a Landstraße along the forest that doesn't go all the way, just about 3/4 of it. When I entered the bit with the forest alongside the way, I already felt something not wanting me to be there at all. Hearing that, I screamed, "Vespers dish," piss off in English, into the forest, hoping that it just was a wild animal, that it would go away, but it didn't. It just got nearer. I stood there frozen up in fear when it got to the edge of the forest nearly on the street and started whispering something I couldn't understand. But to my luck, shortly after, a car passed and pulled me out of my state of shock, and I ran all the way home. I haven't walked that path since then.
All in all, these encounters are also something very strange and very scary, and we're still not sure if it's actually a skinwalker or something else, because normally these things aren't very normal here. We've even heard or seen one of these things on our driveway triggering one of the motion sensor lights. And sorry for my poor German pronunciation. I did the best I could.
He made me put a gun to my head while his gun was in my wife's mouth as he said, "You've got 5 seconds to pull the trigger and prove your love or she dies." When I couldn't do it, he obliterated her skull, and when I tried to fire the gun at him, it had been empty all along.
And now the stories have come to an end. If you're still awake, well, I hope you fall asleep shortly. And the sounds that you hear in the background are going to take center stage for no more than 30 minutes to help you fall asleep or stay asleep. But if you are awake and want to hear more stories, I do have playlists for that as well. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.